my name is Quentin Palfrey. I'm the executive director of an organization called JPAL North America, which is the Poverty Action Lab at MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So what we do is we take the methods of scientific inquiry that have transformed medical science over the course of the 20th century, randomized controlled trials, and we apply them to large-scale social programs. One of the things that's difficult in determining whether a social program works is knowing what would have happened if you hadn't had the intervention. So if you think about how medieval scientists thought about leeches, right? You have a leech and you put it on somebody who's sick. Maybe they get better, maybe they don't. Maybe they are, maybe it was the leeches, maybe it was something else, you just don't know. And for years, social science and government decision-making have been governed by the same principles. So take, for example, aid to Africa, right? There's a big debate about whether aid is actually the most effective way of alleviating poverty. Some people say, we know it works, we can tell what has transformed societies. Other people say, no, it's the free market, and the real way to lift people out of poverty is through trade and other kinds of economic stimulus. And the problem with that very interesting debate is that we just don't know the answer to the question. There's only one Africa. You don't know what would have happened had we not given billions of dollars of aid. And so it becomes a very difficult thing to try to figure out, well, if the aid leads to the GDP basically stays the same. Would it have been worse maybe if you hadn't invested in them? These are just questions that we can't answer in a rigorous way. So what we do is we take maybe slightly smaller but still very big questions and try to apply scientific rigor to them. I think that transforming government decision-making, philanthropic decision-making, the decision-making of people who can move large numbers of resources to ensure that we're targeting those resources towards things that the evidence shows are effective allows us to have much more impact. And when you're talking about fighting poverty, or you're talking about the problems of the least fortunate members of our society, you're almost always talking about scarce resources. So the decision to do something that works as opposed to something that doesn't work actually is a life or death decision in many cases for large numbers of people. And while it may sound sort of cold and abstract, to think about it in those terms, actually that is a much more effective way to think about altruism at scale than some of the other programs that we don't know whether they're working or not. I think conferences like Data for Policy are very helpful tools for increasing the dialogue between the scholarly community and policymakers about what we know, about what works, about what we know about what resources exist to help inform policy making and also to teach policymakers how to be effective producers and consumers of evidence, how to pilot programs in a way that allows them to gain evidence over time about whether their efforts are actually succeeding or failing so that they can, in a true scientific method, inspired way, change the program, test new hypotheses, and get closer and closer to an optimized system for delivering their services and programs.